Because with what I was going to end up going towards, it would be, you're here, let me give you a medication to deal with your problem, rather than how about we get you doing all of these simple things in life that's going to keep you out of here. I want to be that guy. I'll tell you the free things that you can do free that's going to keep you out of the hospital.
I got a question for you to really kick things off, and it's something that a lot of people think about, especially with how important muscle is, you know, improving insulin sensitivity, improving longevity. The list goes on and on with the benefits.
Yeah.
But also it's the aesthetic part too. You know, so I got a question. Is it possible for us to build muscle and burn fat at the same time?
Yes, it's absolutely possible. The thing is, it's context dependent, because when you first start strength training, and it's like the first few years of strength training it's so fun because you're seeing your body change in so many different ways somewhat quickly. Now, when you first start strength training, whether it's you're doing some bodybuilding stuff in the gym or you just start with some barbells and you're doing powerlifting, whatever it is, CrossFit, you're going to gain muscle pretty quickly, especially if you at least have adequate amount of protein in your diet, you're eating enough calories, but you don't need to go into bulk mode. You know, that's one thing that happens when a lot of men and even some women, they're like, I want to gain muscle. So they start going way above their maintenance caloric intake. If you make sure that you're getting in, for most people, a gram per pound of body weight of protein or lean body mass if you're a little bit heavier, and you also make sure to do a bit of cardio if you want, you don't have to, but you stay at maintenance or maybe at a slight caloric deficit, because you're new to this stimulus and you've never done it before, you're gonna put on muscle for a good amount of time. And then if your training is progressive, meaning week to week, month to month, you're putting a little bit more weight on the bar, or you're doing a few more reps, or you're just noticing certain workouts are getting easier, but it's progressive and you're making progress, you're going to be gaining muscle as you're losing body fat. Now, the only way you're going to be gaining muscle and gaining a lot of body fat is if you go into quite a caloric surplus, meaning that, let's say your maintenance calories is, everyone loves the number 2,000. So 2,000 for your maintenance caloric intake, and you start eating 3,000 calories, you'll gain some muscle and you'll also gain a bit of fat. And that'll be cool. You can cut later on if you want to, but I'm more in the party of the side of, let's take the gradual approach so that we don't need to put on excess body fat, and you don't need to worry about trying to cut all that fat later on after you've put on a good amount of muscle.
Yeah. Perfect. You know, because we do have this paradigm of the bulk and the cut, you know, and I'm definitely more of a fan of like just gradually adding muscle as you go along. But I think it's because we have those goals, like we just want it, you know, just want to get swole. We just want to, we want to have it today.
Yeah.
But even your breakdown of this, I'm sure that your thoughts have evolved over time. But I want to go back to the beginning and ask what got you into this in the first place. How did you fall in love with lifting heavy things? And, you know, also just through your story, did anything up happen along the way? Like, let's go back to the beginning.
Well, I started lifting when I was 13, but I started playing soccer when I was 6. I told you before we started the show that I was raised by my mom, which is an amazing woman. I just... as I get older, I'm just like, God, I want to give back to her as much as possible, but I'm extremely fortunate of the way that she raised me. First thing is she put me in sports, athletics when I was 6. I didn't have a dad at home, so it allowed me to be around a team, played soccer. So I was around a lot of coaches, a lot of other guys, and I was able to build friendships with other guys, right? But when I was 13, I got something called Osgood Slaughter. I don't know if you've ever heard of Osgood Slaughter. It's kind of this thing that happens with your knees when you're growing a little bit too fast and certain things can't catch up. So I had massive knee pain and I couldn't play soccer anymore. And that's the first time in my life, and one of the last times in my life, that I actually had true depression. I went from being a kid who would play on a soccer field 4 or 5 times a week to an individual that couldn't run because of Osgood Slaughter. And I just stopped talking to people. She'd ask me things, I'd be very because I didn't have an outlet. It was bad. So she got me a gym membership at the gym really close to our house and was just like, go. Just initially she went and did some cardio, and I looked around and started lifting some weights, and I saw this really jacked black dude and I just started doing what he was doing. I just started copying the dude. But at that time, there were like forums on T Nation, etc. So I just literally started lifting. And I switched right back to the kid that I used to be. So I learned that I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but with stress, my outlet was physicality. My outlet didn't turn to food. My outlet wasn't, you don't have many outlets as a kid, but my outlet turned to use physical activity to buffer bad feelings and bad situations. So I had Oscar Slaughter for 3 years, and I was able to start playing soccer again at 16, but I kept lifting. So by the time I was 16, I was around like 215, 220. I got down to about 190 when I continued playing soccer because I gained a little bit of body fat in those years I wasn't playing. But the lifting never left, and the sports never left. I did get an injury when I was in college, which stopped me from playing soccer. I got surgery on my foot, but I just kept lifting. That was the thing that I had and the thing that was with me. So it was a habit that I had since childhood that helped me out so much into adulthood.
Man, that's powerful. So going through that experience, when did it become something that you wanted to share with other people?
That happened right after soccer because I was in school for biomedical sciences, so I wanted to be a doctor. But when I was playing soccer and I got that
And I'm
injury,
sure your Nigerian mother
yeah,
wanted you to
doctor,
be.
lawyer, engineer. That's it. Every Nigerian that's listening knows doctor, lawyer, engineer, and if it's not one of those, you're a failure. But
That's
nah.
option number 4.
Option number 4, failure. But yeah, my whole thing, the reason I wanted to be a doctor is because I knew I wanted to help people with their health. And that was the only way I saw that I could help people by becoming a doctor. But in time, I kind of realized that like I volunteered at an ER in Davis, California, the UC Davis ER. And when I was there, I had a lot of really cool experiences. I saw death, which was pretty wild to me. But I was able to also talk to and interview a lot of the doctors there. And I wanted to get a handle of like what they enjoyed about what they did. Because if this is going to be my profession, I need to like the day to day, right? And there were quite a few that really loved it. And they're like, yeah, I'm here all the time. I love this. But there were quite a few that were like, really think about what you're about to set your mind to do here. You're going to be here all day. If you want a family, you're not going to be able to spend as much time as you want with that family as you'd like. This is a job that makes really good money, but there's quite a bit of sacrifice in terms of the life you'll be living. So if you're ready to make that sacrifice, keep on. If you're not, go home and think. And when a few of them told me that, I was like, God, I'm a junior and I'm having thoughts of that. I don't want to do this. Like, I still want to figure out the health thing, but how else can I do it? So I realized that that wasn't what I wanted to go towards. I also knew that as a personal trainer, there was only certain things I could do, but I was like, okay, I got to leave and I got to just start doing something. So I left, started training people at a gym, slowly started working with people online. And then I started doing the podcast, and which happened years later, but it allowed me to take my love for exercise and health and figure out a way to share it with as many people as I could, by helping them build habits to prevent them from having to go to the hospital. Yeah. Because with what I was going to end up going towards, it would be, you're here, let me give you a medication to deal with your problem, rather than how about we get you doing all of these simple things in life that's going to keep you out of here. I want to be that guy. Yeah. I'll tell you the free things that you can do free that's going to keep you out of the hospital. And that's still going to end up helping me have my goal of helping people.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's just like, so number one, I don't want to miss this. You said that you had the opportunity to ask questions.
Yeah.
Just imagine how few people actually, number one, have the opportunity. Number two, actually just do it. Mm-hmm. You know, again, I feel very much the same. You know, I went into my collegiate experience thinking, you know, again, I should be a doctor because, you know, fill in the blank, I could be successful and they look happy on the Cosby Show, whatever, you know. And so, but the thing was, it's just, it didn't resonate with me, with the person that I saw myself being, you know, but fate had other plans for me, you know, kind of redirecting my entry into health. And it's really remarkable, man, because what you're doing is, we don't put in these terms, but you're saving lives. or you're helping other people to save their own life
Yes.
by giving them these foundational tools. And I want to ask you about this too, because just going back with your issues around your knees and your development, and my youngest son Braden, his friend plays basketball.
Okay.
Shout out to his friend Evan, and he had quote growing pains, and so he kept being sidelined. He had to wear like a cast or brace or something like that. It's just like, what is going on? Like, we're coming out like baby giraffes, just like not being able to sort stuff out, right? But the reality is, there's so many different things that can become a part of our story that we could use, because of course, like he's depressed. He because his identity was tied to that. Could be, but more so, it's the outlet. So I want to talk more about that, because today more than ever, we have the most sedentary culture in the history of human civilization.
Yeah.
And I think a big contributing factor to our epidemics of mental health issues is not having an outlet. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. No, having an outlet is one of the, especially having an outlet where you can tire yourself physically. That's one of the things that I think has just allowed me to, or convinced me that everyone needs something. Okay, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I lift. I'll jump rope. I do things physically because I know for a fact that if I'm feeling down or if I'm not feeling that great, if I can go jump rope for 10 minutes, the cascade of hormones that starts going on and helping me feel better is going to allow me to feel better immediately. Now, not everyone realizes that off the bat, because maybe they're starting to do something when they're older, when you're an adult. When you're an adult and you start lifting or you start going down the rabbit hole of physical activity, you are aware, meaning that you're smart. You have all these reasons to tell yourself not to do that thing. If it's the gym, well, people are going to look at me. People are going to make fun of me. People in my life are going to judge me for this or whatever. If it's anything, you always figure out a way to talk yourself out of it. But those outlets are going to be one of the things that allow you to feel better. I have friends who have had depression who started doing jujitsu or started a physical thing, and their depression magically went away over time. It's just, if I didn't have that, and if I didn't build that habit since I was a kid, I would have depression because I've had it before. There's a time I had a surgery. That time I had the surgery on my foot when I was in college. I did go into a bout of depression for about a month because I really I at that point my soccer career was over because my plan was to play pro, and I just didn't have a plan. But after about a month, I told myself, okay, well, you can't sit here moping. Go work out. Go to the gym. It's been a month since you've been to the gym. First few days I went to the gym, I'm like, God, I feel so good. Like, I feel so good. And that was this thing that knocked me out of it and helped me figure out and realize, okay, let's shift focus. Let's figure out something to do. So as a young person, I know it can be tough, but if you can get a parent to get you a gym membership, or if you can start something, just something you're interested in that's going to allow you to use your body and grow and develop and build, it's something that can change so many lives. And it doesn't have to be the gym. This is the one thing that I think is super important, because as much as I talk about the gym and I'm like, that was great for me, it can be going to, I don't know, it can be going to a CrossFit box. It can be picking up a jump rope and starting some jump rope. It can be going to the park and doing some calisthenics. Just something that's going to allow you to get that heart rate up, exert yourself, use your body. You will feel good afterwards. And the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit and cemented into the things you do day by day. And if you can build that, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you're giving people tools as well. Like you said earlier, it's free, because if you have a body, you have so much opportunity to use it in creative ways,
And don't underestimate walking.
Yeah.
I just want to say this. When I was younger, I used to I think when my ex would go walking, I'd be like, why are you walking? It's such a waste of time.
Yep.
I look back at that now, I'm like, Nsima, you're so dumb. Walking, it feels good. Your mind starts racing. That's when I can come up with some of my best ideas. And I mean, let's not even talk about sleep and all those other things, but walking itself is just a way to just to get yourself moving, and that'll help you out too.
Yeah. Man, it's so crazy the similarities because I had that revelation when I was working with people and people tell me, I walk to I literally in my head I'll be like, you're going to have to hurry up. You're going to have to like you're never going to get there
Yeah.
because it's such a slow thing. And eventually it hit me, and it was a big part of it was a conversation I had with Katie Bowman. She's a biomechanist, and just the way she was explaining some things, and nutritious movement is kind of one of her things she talks about.
Yeah.
But it really hit me that, like, what is the human body designed to do? Of all the forms of, quote, exercise, we put it under these categories too, right? But what is the essential human movement? Like, what is the thing that we're literally designed to do? We can do all this stuff. We could push a sled. We could, deadlift, 500 pounds, whatever the case might be. Are we designed to do it? We can. And oftentimes these are some kind of static movements as well. But the thing we know that we're designed to do is to walk, And so once that really hit, that's when I really started to invest more time into it. But the thing is too, is that it's a time thing. This is something you can stack. You just mentioned the creativity that comes from it, for example.
Yeah.
Researchers at Stanford actually did a study on this, and they found that when people would step away from a task and go for a walk, something called creative inspiration would increase by like a magnitude of 60%. And a specific type of creativity where they were thinking outside the box, right? Because we tend to get this tunnel vision when we're trying to work on a problem, right? And they called it divergent thinking would increase by walking, So that's one benefit. And also, but you can extract that from it, but also this could be a time for connection. Maybe you're walking with your significant other or with your pet, right? You have a dog.
Three.
Oh, shit.
Huskies.
3 Huskies.
3 Huskies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to know more about this.
Well,
how's that situation working out?
Yeah, I have a beautiful girlfriend. Her name is Sam. And I just want to mention, because you mentioned walking with your significant other, I have to say, like, the best, deepest conversations where I've learned the most about her and we've been able to hash out any type of disagreements that we've ever had have been on walks, have been on hikes, because we're just talking and then we get to a topic, but we're outside and it's if you have a significant other, please start walking with them, because that'll be something where you guys can, number one, get off your butts and get walking, not being sedentary, but you guys will be able to hash out a lot of stuff. I'll say walking is a great therapist for both of us. Now, 3 Huskies. I had one at the beginning of 2021. I got my first Husky, and then I got in a relationship. And then the next year I was like, I want to get myself another dog because I loved having my Husky. But then we went to go visit and find a dog. And the dog I wanted, he was a puppy, but I couldn't take him home. And then she saw a dog and she was like, I want one too. I was like, all right, well, then she was like, she Jedi mind tricked me. She said, okay, let's just foster it. Let's just take it home and take care of it until somebody wants to adopt. We fostered, and then we adopted, and then I adopted the one I wanted. Hence 3 Huskies.
Wow.
I love the life, though. It's great.
Yeah, that seemed to happen very quickly.
It did. It did.
Wow, man. I want to ask you about this because, you mentioned your foot surgery, and, life is going to present you with these different setbacks, and it has the opportunity to create character.
Yeah.
Or it can spiral into negativity. We have both as an option. But you use eventually as an opportunity for learning. And today it's even on your Instagram page. I hate shoes.
I hate shoes.
Right. And so I'm asking you about this because your level of knowledge today in taking care of your feet, so number one, why are our feet so important for our overall health?
Man, I'm taking this quote directly from my homie, the Barefoot Sprinter. We've made a lot of content with him. But the feet have 26 bones, 30 joints, and 100 ligaments, tendons, and muscles, right? And the shoes that we wear, primarily the shoes that I was wearing growing up as a soccer athlete, are super narrow at the toe box. I have a big, wide foot, and I'm wearing these Nikes that bring my toes up to a point. So now my toes are going from here to here. And as I started learning more about feet, and I started seeing pictures of cultures that didn't wear shoes, you notice how all these people have this nice toe spread. Their feet don't look like ours in the US. Their feet, they have this natural space in between, and they're not impacted and messed up like that. And then I started realizing, like, okay, number one, I had to get that foot surgery primarily because of my soccer cleats. So I'm actually very glad that that happened to me, because I have a situation that's like, look, this is a problem. But then it's like, I realized, I'm like, wow, number one, if I had something that I could wear that was allowing my feet to do what they needed to do, I probably could have kept playing soccer. But number two, the amount that's missed because people are wearing the wrong footwear and not actually using their feet. There's a lot of shoes that are great. They're comfortable. They're marketed to feel like you're walking on clouds. You know, take out that super comfortable shoes, but the feet aren't getting the work they need to get. This is the first contact that you have with the ground every single morning. When you're walking, when you're running, you're sending shocks up your body, forces that your body then needs to handle. But if your foot is weak and not able to handle those forces in the way that they need to handle them, that pain will go to your knee. That pain will go to your lower back. That pain could go all the way to your neck and your head. And then you end up with individuals with really bad gaits. Gait meaning your walking cycle, like their feet are pointed outwards. There's a lot of imbalances that can happen in the muscles, but a lot of that starts with the feet. Now, the problem here is that, like, well, how do I fix that? A simple way is to start walking barefoot. And that's good. That's going to be beneficial, but not everyone wants to walk around with black feet everywhere, right? Black bottom of the toes.
Got those new black bottoms.
Got those new black bottoms. But there's tons of shoes out there. And actually, it's interesting because barefoot shoes had a really, they had a surge in like 2011, 2012. I don't know if you remember, like with Vibrams and those types of shoes. Five fingers.
Yeah.
But then there's someone that made a book called Ready to Run. It wasn't Kelly Stretto, it was somebody else. And after people started doing barefoot running, they started getting all these sorts of injuries, and everyone was like, okay, this is not actually good for people. It died down. The reason why it was rough for people is because people didn't give themselves a gradual entry into wearing barefoot shoes or doing barefoot activity. All right. You're now going from wearing a cushiony shoe to wearing a shoe with no drop, meaning flat. So now your feet are taking all these forces that they are not used to taking, and they're not happy. You know, underneath your feet, it hurts. It's painful. It's like, God, this is wild. But this is the thing, your feet are getting stronger and they're getting adapted to now the new forces you're putting through them. And then over time, they'll get better. But it's just like starting to go to the gym or building any new activity. You need to give yourself a gradual approach. You cannot go off the deep end, start running barefoot, start using barefoot shoes. What happened with me is I did start using barefoot shoes, and then I had some pain on the bottom of my feet. I also got like toe spreaders. The ones I would suggest, I don't have a code or anything, but go to correcttoes.com. I've used a lot of different toe spreaders, and these ones are really good, but they'll help you get the space back in between your toes that your feet should have, since most people's toes are here. But when I started, I would do jump rope, I would walk or whatever in these types of shoes. Bottom of my feet would hurt. So I'd go back, I'd wear some of my more cushiony shoes for a little bit of time, let my feet heal and adapt, and then I'd go back to wearing the barefoot shoes again and doing all these activities barefoot. You'll notice over at Super Training, Mark, myself, a lot of us don't wear shoes when we work out because we want our feet to be strong. And it's crazy. Within the past year, my foot transformation. This is why, like, learning from all these amazing guests that we're able to talk with and ask questions to is, and this is why you love your job too, because we're able to learn so much. And we're able to selfishly, honestly, I'm able to get the benefit from this, and then we share it with people. But my feet, the tendons have gotten thicker, my toe spread is back, I have less pain and discomfort in certain areas of my body. I feel springier because now my feet and toes, like my toes I have soreness when doing certain movements in like the arches of my feet because they're actually activated. When I was a teenager, the doctor told me I had flat feet. So they gave me orthotics, these special orthotics to put in my cleats to give me an arch. But that artificial arch from those orthotics weren't helping me. They were weakening the arch that I had, and they were causing me to have more foot problems. And this is the thing, it's not the doctor's fault. This is something that they did for everybody. They're like, you need an arch, slip something in there. Rather than let's develop those weak feet that you've been stuffing in cushioned
Yeah.
shoes over your past decade,
Yeah.
right? So the feet are something that I think like, dog, like if people can fix that over time, it's not something that happens immediately. You need to, you need to adjust when you're having certain pain. There are certain things you could do. But if you can develop strong feet, everything up chain becomes easier. You got to remember, it's the first contact you have with the ground.
Yeah.
You want that contact to be strong.
Yeah, those orthotics were like a drug, basically. Like,
Yeah.
let's treat a symptom instead of addressing the root cause.
Yeah, I think the ones I had were called super feet. They're like pretty expensive orthotics, but it's exactly that. And again, it's not their fault. That's what they did for everyone with flat feet. And I had flat feet, but it's just because my feet weren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Now it's really crazy to me. Like when I'm doing lifting or even when I'm sitting around, I wear toe socks. Have you seen those socks that like are individually on your toes?
Yeah.
Okay, I know they may look really weird, and people may
You
go
could
on
even
Amazon.
have different colored toes if
Yeah,
you want. If you
you
want to
could.
get super fly.
Absolutely. But the cool thing that toe socks do is because they're individually wrapping your toes and they're on your individual toes, they increase your proprioceptive awareness of what your toes are doing in space. Because oddly enough, socks themselves are kind of like shoes.
Yeah.
They cast your foot and they cast your toes, and now your toes are just sitting around. But the toe socks help, like my toes have been moving this whole podcast. Like they're always doing things because now they're activated. And I'm not thinking about it. It's just what my toes are doing because my foot is doing what it's supposed to do. So the thing I think about is, God, if people could just, it doesn't cost money. Like you could get yourself any brand of barefoot shoes you want, get some toe socks, start walking around. That's all. Even if you don't want to go take a run, just jump rope. Let your feet get used to what the ground feels like. It's going to hurt for a little bit, especially if you've been wearing really tight shoes or really cushiony shoes. But if you do that over the next year, 2 years, the difference that's going to happen with your feet and then the difference that's going to happen with your whole body because of that one thing you fixed, dog, it's wild.
Yeah. We need to start, and you're doing it, man, starting a foot revolution. You know what I mean? A foot evolution.
Evolution.
And listen, because you said it, one of the most profound things that you just said was that it's your first point of contact. So it's like this kinetic chain that goes from your foot to your brain and affecting everything in between. So a lot of knee issues are actually rooted in foot problems, right?
A lot of back issues are
Yeah.
related to foot problems because, again, you make contact with the ground the wrong way. You don't understand that you're making contact the right way. Those forces are going to find somewhere to dissipate. And for a lot of people, it's the knees. For a lot of people, it's the lower back. For some people, it's the neck. Or, it has to dissipate somewhere. And then it's just like, I think about people who are running, like they're like running as an exercise, and they're striking the ground in a non-ideal way over and over and over again. It's problematic.
Yeah, and often because we're programmed to wear maximalist shoes, doing that, not minimalist, the other end of the spectrum, and creating so much foot weakness. And one of the things too, I remember this infomercial when I was, around 21-ish, dealing with my health issues, back problems. I saw an infomercial about some inserts to help with back pain, right?
Yeah.
So I'm ordering, I'm just gotta get rid of this pain. I didn't know it was my feet. And it's something where you do, I'm not gonna say that you do nothing, but that's kind of what's marketed towards us. Like, do this thing so you don't have to change, and it's gonna fix it for you. There is some degree of things we can set up in our lives where good stuff is automatically happening, kind of shifting our environment, but we're taking away the personal responsibility of being like a strong human, and doing more human stuff. And so this conversation is super important regarding our feet. And I know that there are going to be some women that are listening right now. So you said I can't wear, you said black bottoms. What about my red bottoms for real, Shawn? You know? And so I'm going to throw this piece out here because what I've been able to maneuver with this is that I spend, if I'm not specifically putting shoes on, like, some cool shoes to do whatever, I'm spending my time being barefoot, So like if I'm at my desk, I've got a stand-up desk. I can sit down, stand up. I've got a, one of those, like you guys have those too, at the
grounding mat?
podcast studio. I have a grounding mat too.
Okay.
but also just kind of the anti-fatigue mat I might stand on a little bit. But
Yeah.
even when you're standing there, you can do exercises. Like you can get yourself a lacrosse ball or whatever the case might be. There's so many creative things that you can do. Just spend the moniker here is spend more time barefoot, right?
Yes.
You can still
Yes.
wear your cool shoes, but you're probably gonna find out those are even more uncomfortable, right?
But yes, you hit it. Yeah, man, you hit it. Okay, so a few things. You saw like when we over at our podcast, it's standing. So Mark and I, like, I'll have a lacrosse ball underneath my foot as we're doing the interview, right? We'll be doing some just wild stuff with our feet while we're talking to people, just because we're standing. So that's one thing. You don't have to get a standing desk if it's too expensive. They have Amazon desk risers that are 100 to 150 bucks. So you put it on your desk, you could rise it, you could stand, right? But the difference in, okay, like I have Yeezys, I have Jordans, right? I like to wear them on special occasions, but these are shoes that I wear 5%, 5 to 10% of the time. The other 5 to 10% or the other 90%, I'm either barefoot. I've gotten some Vibram five fingers, and I used to clown people who wore those shoes, those Vibrams that have the. I used to be like, ugh, like, what? Do you want to have a spouse? Like, what's going on here? But yo, for that foot health, I'll make the sacrifice. My girlfriend has noticed that she has heels and she has all these shoes, but as she started wearing barefoot shoes, her feet have hypertrophied, as mine have. My foot got bigger. Okay, so she's gained muscle on her feet, and she's put her red bottoms on because she has red bottoms, and she's put her old shoes on, and she's like, God damn, these hurt now. So this is the thing. It's like these shoes, you're not going to be wearing them most of the time. At least I hope you don't have to. But understand that your feet will change for the better, right? And when that happens, you're going to be more aware of what these shoes are actually doing to your foot. Your brain is going to be more aware because the proprioceptive aspect we talked about. When you start wearing toe socks and you go more barefoot, and you start doing different things with your toes, your brain is now more aware of what those toes are doing in space. One of the reasons why people can stick their feet in such tight shoes is because their feet are quite literally numb to the sensation of what those shoes are doing to them. But when their feet start activating, I'll call it, you realize, oh God, I've been doing this for years. This is what I've been sticking my foot in, and I haven't felt it. And when you feel it, you'll be like, oh, okay, I should make a switch.
Yeah, man, that's profound. And just this is going to be theoretical for some folks, but if I put my hand down here on my thigh,
Yeah.
I could use my mind and lift up each finger one at a time.
Uh-huh.
Now, if you try to replicate, which theoretically you should be able to do that with your foot as well.
Theoretically, yeah.
Very, very similar structure as far as just your, you got the five finger, even the five finger Vibrams, right?
Yeah.
You've got the same kind of action. But if you try to do that, for most people, they can't lift up except maybe the big toe.
Except maybe
Yes.
a big toe.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. That's why I guess this has been such a cool experiment and transformation for myself. When we have these guests that come on, we always like ask them things and we start applying immediately. So when we had guests on that have talked about feet, there's an exercise you can do. I got this if you guys want to check him out, he's the Barefoot Sprinter on Instagram. He has a lot of stuff on feet. He loves feet. He's kind of weird in that way, but it's called the big toe thumbs up. Okay, so if you sit there, can you lift your big toe and keep all your other toes planted on the ground, right? And then can you put your big toe down while lifting up all the other toes? Do you have that? And then try, like you said, try doing other things with the other parts of your other toes. You're going to notice that neurologically, you don't have that connection to your toes, and you need to build that. So those are little exercises, the big toe thumbs up. You can, it's called the hand foot glove. You should take your hand, slide it in between your toes, and start making circular motions. Massage that around. It's gonna feel a little bit painful at first, but over time that should feel super comfortable. One thing that's like been pretty cool, me and my girl were in the sauna, and I was just doing stuff with my feet, and I was staring at my toe. I was staring at my foot, and I was looking at my second toe, and I was like, yes. She was like, what the hell are you doing? I was like, I'm trying to pick up my second toe, just my second toe. And it started wiggling and twitching. And it's like, this is such a cool thing. It's like, number one, if we weren't sticking our feet in shoes since we were kids, we'd be able to do stuff like this. But as an adult, I gotta say, it's pretty cool discovering new things about my body.
Yeah.
You
Like
know?
when you just said that, I've had that moment. I felt like I was coming out of a coma, like in a movie, like, look at his toes moving. That's how I felt. And I'm just like, but I'm by myself, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I was glad to know that other people have experienced these things.
No, man.
Let's
Yeah.
move uphill a little bit from our feet to another joint that is incredibly complex, that is just getting assaulted today in our society, which is our knees. And the thing is, like, we come here with a genetic template. If you look at hunter-gatherer societies, this isn't a very common thing to see these tissues breaking down outside of our quote, evolved modern day cultures.
Yeah.
And so our knees are designed to take us all the way there, to a century with grace. And I've seen this over the years, so many people that were coming into my clinic, we do stuff for, nutrition wise, some exercise and movement, but we are kind of limited.
Yeah.
Well, we were limited in what we perceived we could do from a physical movement standpoint to help to rehabilitate our knees. Today, the game has changed so much.
Absolutely.
And I've seen this, folks being able to kind of, regenerate meniscus and accelerate the healing of tears, dramatically reducing their risk of injury for, sports that tend to see more of these injuries occur by getting involved in some of this treatment and training.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that we can do to strengthen our functionality with our knees, and also just kind of, bulletproof our knees against injury?
We were really fortunate to be able to talk to Ben Patrick, knees over toes guy, about maybe 2 years ago when he first came onto the show. Now, I obviously had Auschwitz slaughter for like 3 years, but I also had a meniscectomy, partial meniscus removal in my right knee when I was 23. And there was always a little level of weakness in that knee. There was also a little level of weakness in my other knee because of the Auschwitz slaughter I had as a kid. And I was pretty sure that I was just destined to have issues with my knees up until I was old. Like, I'm like, okay, this is something I'm just going to have to deal with. I'm going to have to modify everything to kind of work around my knees. And I kind of settled in that. When I started seeing some of the things that Ben was doing, the first thing I saw his Instagram, knees over toes guy, saw him doing ATG split squats and all these things. I was just like, okay. Because, I was squatting. I was doing all these things. But there was a level that I wasn't taking my knees to, because I was just like, I don't want to go that deep, or I probably shouldn't do that much. But just the concept of moving your joints through a great range of motion, and the big thing to be careful with here is using an appropriate load. The one place where a lot of people mess them up, just in general, when it comes to exercise, is using loads and weights that their body shouldn't be using yet, or that they're just not accustomed to, right? You need to go and use a regression that you can start with. And for some people, that's using no weight. If somebody goes on Google right now and types in the ATG split squat, right, you'll see it. It's a deep knee bend where the back leg is in full hip extension. And if you type it in, you'll see Ben doing a lot of those movements. It may seem like a movement that's kind of scary to do, but if you do it with no weight, you can start working that. You're going to get a lot of blood into that area because those tissues are being challenged. Maybe you might be sore for a few days, but then you'll be able to do it again. You'll be able to progress. And it's literally, the concept is kind of that simple. Work the joint through as deep of a range of motion as you possibly can without pain, recover, and do it again. Also work the muscles that are the agonists. You were mentioning before the show, like, you did a lot of quad work, but you didn't do that hamstring work, and the hamstrings were pulled, right? Well, work the hamstrings, because not just is there a front of the knee with your quad and all of that, there's also the back of the knee. You want to strengthen that area. You also want to just strengthen all these other weak links that are in the leg. That's why, the tibialis that Ben always has people talking about, the calves, all these areas, you want to strengthen those areas outside of just doing squats. That's why the background of lifting that I come from, like bodybuilding, right? Powerlifting. There's a lot of focus on the weight that's being moved, right? So when people focus too much on the weight that's being moved, they don't think about the movement quality. And that's fair. If you want to move the most weight possible, sometimes you're going to have to cheat it, right? But if you can work with a light enough load that'll allow you to get into the deepest range of motion you possibly can with the knee, or even no load, and progress that over time, you can build very strong, resilient knees, but you have to be okay with the gradual aspect of the process. When I say the gradual aspect, it's like, understand that this is going to take months of repetition, of continuing to do some of the same things, and slow increases in load. Some of the places where people really injure themselves is when they try to increase too fast, when they try to increase that load too fast, right? That's why when we talk about these things, we're just like, yo, baby yourself. You know what I mean? Give yourself, just let it take the time it needs to strengthen, recover, and strengthen. Because if you can do that over a consistent period of time, what's going to happen is what happened to me. I started at the least amount of regression for a lot of these movements. I started doing split squats with no weight. I gave myself the time I needed to recover. But now, a lot of times when people ask me, which knee did you have surgery on, I have to think about that for a second.
Yeah.
I have to look at the scar on the right knee and be like, okay, yeah, it's the right one. Because a lot of times I can't tell the difference in between the way my knees feel. And again, since they removed part of that meniscus, I always thought I'd have an issue. But I don't. You know what I mean? It actually is. I don't know what it looks like on the inside of that, but the strength I have in there now, it's baffling to me. It's crazy to me, but it's possible.
Yeah, man. That's when you really know that you're healed in a sense. Like, you don't think about it. You know, that's what you want. That's what life is. Like, you know, a cheetah isn't like, you know, I don't know how my ankle's doing today. You know, it's just doing what it does, just doing cheetah shit, you know. But here we are, just, you know, we start to, especially if we've had any problems, we tend to like obsess about them, because, you know, we have this protective capacity too. You know, our nervous system wants to keep us safe, but we get so in our heads, and also we do so much that just isn't really viable with how we're designed. So like, you've lifted some serious weight. Like, how much is your max squat?
My max squat was 622.
622. All right, so too much.
Actually, 640.
Okay.
I did that. So 640 was my max.
Too much plus. You know what I'm saying? That's amazing, crazy, and amazing. And for you to do that, there's going to be so much static squatting that you've done over the years in this one position, but that doesn't really relate to real life. You know, we've got so many professional athletes, for example, that are doing these training protocols. Well, now, quote, functional exercise has been implemented in so many different sports, which is wonderful. And with the advent of the internet, this change has happened so much quicker. And what I found is that fitness changes so much faster than does health, right? So health care, so medicine, nutrition, those kind of things. Fitness folks, because we got that gym bro kind of mentality, like, I'm just gonna do this shit. Like, this is just, I'm just gonna do it. And to use my body as a training ground or an experiment ground to figure this stuff out. And so seeing this progression take place and understanding, like, if I'm living real life, it's very rare that I'm just gonna do a static squat in one position multiple times, right? So the concept of squatting with your knees, not pushing your hips back at this particular thing, keeping your knees back, this whole thing, that's one way of looking at it, and developing our muscles in one static way. But so that immediately will push you away from this idea of like having my knees over my toes, let alone like moving to the side or my feet being in these, but that's life. Like, you're going to be in awkward positions. If you're engaging with life and doing stuff, if you go for a hike on a complicated terrain, like your feet and your body is doing so much mischievous stuff that you can actually train a little bit more for if you're aware of it.
Absolutely. One thing, or the first thing I want to say before we talk about that, is don't identify with your injury. And what I mean is this: for a very long time, because I had those knee issues since I was 13 years old, up until my 20s, and I had surgery in my knee, I was always just like, well, I'm just going to have knee issues. Like, I knee issues became a part of me. So I identified with it. And even though I was looking for solutions, I was always like, okay, well, I just can't do that, and I can't do that, and I can't do that, because I'm a guy with knee issues. don't allow that to be your mindset when it comes to dealing with injury. If you've had something for a very long time, because I understand how easy it is. If you have lower back pain, you're like, I just have back pain, or I just have this pain. Because there's so many solutions and there's so many things that you can do, and it'll take a while, but you can truly be out of pain. But if you start relating to that injury, you're going to live with it, right? So that's one mindset switch. Instead of relating to the injury and identifying with your injury, be the person that, okay, is like, I have this right now, but I'm going to find a solution, and in time I won't have this anymore, because you don't have to have pain. You don't have to. Okay. But if you identify with it, you're going to stay stuck in your ways. Now, as far as fitness is concerned, and the way that we now, I love how fast fitness moves, because, like, okay, there are still people that are focusing on bodybuilding and people that are focusing on powerlifting, and that's cool. That's their sport. But you're right. For life, you're not going to have a barbell on your back and that's the way you're going to be squatting. Going to be, sometimes you need to pick up something from the ground. You need to do something with your kid, or you just need to get into a deeper range of motion. And if you haven't built the capacity to be able to do something with your knee going over your toes, on the off chance that in life, somewhere your knee goes over your toes, you don't have that capacity, you're going to be like, you know what I mean? Something could happen. So you can actually use the gym as a way to train that capacity. That's why with everything that I do in the gym and everything that we do in the gym, we train with the longest ranges of motion possible, right? And a range of motion that, again, it's not like you're feeling you're going to tear something or injure yourself, and you're also using appropriate load. Yeah. I cannot stop saying that. Use appropriate load. But you're strengthening yourself in disadvantageous positions, so that when life happens and you get into these disadvantageous positions, your body is able to handle it. But not only that, you want to start doing things outside of that single up and down plane. You know, work with kettlebells and do things laterally, do things with rotation. I can't stress how important it is to start adding in some rotational type movements, whether it's med ball slams to the side or there are kettlebell swings that you can do across your body. Building that rotational ability is, again, something that's going to be necessary for life. That's why you'll notice, like, a lot of lifters move in one way and they're very stiff because they haven't built the ability to rotate with power. And these are very simple things that you can add into your training routine that, again, are free. But if you can build those movement capacities, you're just going to move like a more optimal human being. You won't be as stiff. And also, like I mentioned, increasing the range of motion of the movements you do in the gym. If you do that, you'll also move better. I mean, bodybuilders have the reputation of moving around like robots, right? If you just increase that range of motion and really allow your body to stretch within those ranges, you're going to move better. You're going to feel better, and you'll probably won't be in as much pain.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to have you here was that you are the example, like today, to be able to see a human who's built their body as far as the musculature, but your ability to move at the same time and have the amount of muscle mass that you have is remarkable. And it's just like, it's possible, you know, to see somebody like yourself, but also to understand, like, it's very intentional, you know, and part of that is the exposures that you've had and like picking up stuff. Man, I love people who are about that life. Speed of implementation is one of my favorite qualities in a human being. Yeah. And you've said this thing multiple times. I want to lean into this a little bit more for everybody, which is you have to be qualified for certain lifts, like qualify yourself to do certain things. You know, we don't come out of the gate, like you said, like it's a progression, you know, a little bit here and there. And you said Kelly Starrett's name earlier.
Oh, yeah.
He said something to me that it changed my life. It's something so simple. You know, I was doing something trying to heal from an injury, and like a nerve compressed. I was really struggling, and you know, I was doing some things to get better, but then it's just like I would feel like I would backslide sometimes. And he said this to me. He said, "It's not a straight line. Your healing is imminent, but it's not a straight line. There's going to be some curves and some bends throughout the process." You even mentioned this with the shoes, you know, like do the barefoot, but then like, let's take a step back too when you need. It's not a straight line. You don't have to just go this way. And also it's going to be dependent on you. And so don't beat yourself up if you feel like you made a mistake or you did something wrong, or maybe you feel like you had a setback. It's not a straight line, but your healing, your success is imminent. As you said, like, stop identifying with a thing and get focused on the person that you are going to be and start to be that person. And that person isn't carrying around that fear about said thing constantly,
Yeah.
you know?
Right there, what Kelly said to you is applies to everything, literally everything. Weight loss is not linear. One of the reasons why when people are going on a transformation and the scale doesn't say what they want it to say for a few days, they quit, they binge, because they expect this just downward progress. Where there are going to be periods where you go down, there are going to be periods where you're in a straight line, there are going to be periods when you go back up a little bit. But if you can keep the habits, you just mentioned this. The person that what I think about is, what does the person that, for example, doesn't have knee pain, what are the things that they're doing? What are the habits they have? Or the person that's in really good shape, what are the habits they have, right? And if you can be an individual that just starts implementing and building those habits over time, you'll get there. You'll absolutely get there. But if you think that it's just going to be this just straightforward progress, and it's just going to happen like clockwork all the time, that's not how it's going to happen. For me, when it came to flexibility, I really had to work on that, and I had to do a lot of things that people within powerlifting or bodybuilding would think is adverse to that. I started really purposefully stretching years ago, like sitting down, doing different types of mobilizations, but also stretching. And I started making a lot of videos, putting forward stretching routines. There's still 30 routines on my channel. It's called Smooth Panther. Anybody can go in and just do a routine. But after I started doing that, I started seeing a lot of people saying, well, if you want to be as strong as you possibly can and move as much weight on the bar, you probably shouldn't train your flexibility. And also, like, that's going to decrease your power output. And also, there's really no, stretching as far as the research shows. It's just something that it's more so, it's a placebo effect. You don't actually lengthen your muscles. It doesn't make that big of a difference, and it hampers your performance. But I kept doing it because I was just like, I'm feeling a lot better by stretching, even though it's adverse to strength potentially, whatever. But I felt good doing it, and my body was reaping the benefits. I was moving better. One thing I noticed is I wasn't having to warm up for 45 minutes before I actually did a workout because my body wasn't feeling stiff anymore. But still, people were like, stretching, this stretching thing, it's not good for you as a strength athlete. And there are a lot of things that I've done in fitness that are adverse to what people in the strength realm would think is ideal. Like fasting. Apparently, if you fast, you're going to deplete all your muscle and you're going to get really small.
You're going catabolic.
Go catabolic. And I've been doing fasting for 4 years now. Just fine. All I had to do was make sure I was eating enough protein and eating enough food during the day. And I was good. But again, within the strength community, that and the muscle building community, that's like, oh, no, that's not something you do if you want to gain muscle. So it's just over at the Power Project, Mark and I always talk about this, and it's something that I have a rough relationship with science because I love it. And research is so beneficial, man. I love it. But there was a point that I focused too much on what research said personally, and it would stop me from trying things. Like for the longest time, like when people were talking about fasting, I was like, oh, I'm going to lose muscle. This is going to happen. Low carb diets or whatever. Because the research said certain things, I was like, okay, I can't really do that. So it took me out of just trying to apply something and seeing how it worked because the research didn't say it'd be ideal. But I got out of it after a while, and I was just like, okay, know what the research says, and then just do some. Do it. And if it doesn't work, okay, cool. But if it works for you, then you're an anecdote. But at least it works for you, and you're making some progress. Yeah. So That's kind of how I approach a lot of things. I have this, we say we have a white belt mentality. Like, there's a lot of stuff we don't know. And because of that, we have to apply a lot of things and see what sticks and get rid of what doesn't.
Yeah, that's the only way you can truly know something
Yeah.
is experientially. And we limit our ability to experiment when we have bought in fully to an idea of how stuff is supposed to be. You know, this is why again I admire the gym culture, the fitness culture, and I'm a part of that as well because of the speed of implementation and
Yes.
just trying things, experimenting, being very creative, even in the gym. Like I know you've experienced this. Like, let me do this way. You know, like you'll just see some slight change, some slight movement.
Yeah.
And also you'll find that the people who are the greats in these respective things, they're often doing stuff that would be completely wrong to that instructor who's teaching up and coming personal trainers. Like, you're supposed to do it this, and the other person is literally doing the opposite thing. They're doing that
Yes.
thing too, you know, the tried and true, but they're also doing it, you know, with their back bent in a certain way or whatever the case might be. And one of those other things too, which for me is just a logical thing, if you're thinking about the repetitive nature of certain movements and the impact that it can have, like for our knees, for example, and then simply let's literally reverse it. Let's go backwards, right? And so that's one of the things that we were doing at the gym together is, you know, putting on a harness and just pulling some heavy weight backwards. Let's talk about that a little bit.
I'm so happy you mentioned that because I almost forgot that. The backwards sled is, even if you just if you don't have a sled, do something where you can just start walking backwards, because this is something we got from Ben. It's not an original for me, but as I started doing more backwards sled, it just drove blood into that knee and it felt really good. But it also was a great preparation for working out, and it was really, really good for the knees. So yeah, you can do like a lot of the things that we do are on one single plane: walking forward, sprinting forwards, squatting, etc. But how can we maybe reverse some of these? Because that's, again, it's another part of your overall human capacity. If you just stop doing that altogether, there are going to be things that you're missing. There are going to be weak links in the chain. So doing something as simple as backwards sled, you'll notice that you will tire out very, very quickly. Your quads are going to go, your knees are going to feel like jelly. You felt it when we were doing it that day, but you do that consistently with a sled or whatever type of thing you have at your gym. Just walk backwards before you work out. And you can build up load over time. You're going to find that your knees are going to start to feel pretty damn resilient to that. And you'll adapt pretty quickly because it's a stimulus. Like we mentioned, working out from never working out before, you'll gain muscle pretty fast. Doing the barefoot stuff when you haven't done it before, you're going to see some results. You're going to see some changes. The same thing when adding in the backwards sled. You're going to see some changes in the way your knees feel and your quads feel and your feet feel because of it. And that's something that I think, if you have a routine that you've been enjoying for years, or just a way of working out that you've really been enjoying for years, that's good, because you're in here and you already have the habit of exercise, and it's going to be great for your fitness. But find weaknesses. Look for things that you're not good at, because a somewhat of an issue, and I wouldn't say it's one of the biggest issues, because if you're working out, okay, you're winning. All right, you're winning. But when you get really comfortable and you're like, okay, I squat, I do these movements and I'm out, and you've been good at that for a long time, there are places where you're weak. So my big suggestion would be to search for those places. For a lot of people, the feet are going to be really weak.
Yep.
For a lot of people, deep ranges of motion with the knees or these joints are going to be pretty weak. For a lot of people, rotational movement's going to be weak. Get good at those things. And the crazy and the cool thing is that you're going to see, it's going to also bring back a bit of motivation for you in terms of exercise, because now you're not good at something. Now you're starting from square one. I personally find that really, really exciting. I find it exciting when I find something that I'm bad at, because I'm like, what happens if I get good at this? What happens if my feet get stronger? How am I going to feel in a year or 2 years or 3 years? When I started jujitsu, what happens when I actually get good at this? Because I suck right now, and women are kicking my ass. What happens when I do this for a few years? That would be the big thing I want people to focus on. Find weak links. Search for weak links in the chain, and make those your strengths, because you're going to become a stronger person and just an overall, just like stronger human because of it.
Yeah. And just even that physical challenge, doing things in a different way, your nervous system, like this is why somebody that can be incredibly fit and you do a different type of workout and it's you're sweating like you usually don't sweat. It's more exhausting. It's just more of a challenge. It's because your brain is being forced to change and adapt everything that's happening cellularly.
Yeah.
And I love this advice. And I was just thinking about, again, you don't need anything to do this, to take advantage of some of that nutritious movement of moving backwards.
No.
Even if you're at a track by your school, right? And you're doing 400, right? If you're just walking 3 and then maybe you walk backwards on the straight, right? Or same thing, you can jog 3 and then jog backwards on the straight, whatever it is. You can do some different implements just with your body.
Yes.
And then if you've got a sled or something that you could pull, great. There's the harness that we use that day, but also you can hook up some straps to it. The TRX they're pretty affordable. You can, my guy, Mike Mutzel, he got a TRX and he hooked it up to his car, to his truck. And he just was pulling that, going backwards. It's just like, and then the thing is, you might see them like, that's a hell of a level of strength. Yeah, it is. But also it depends on the vehicle and, putting it in neutral, that whole thing.
It looks impressive as hell, though.
It does. It's very, very cool IG grab.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But just be creative. This is what I'm saying again about being creative with your environment and with your body. What helps with that creativity? Walking, right? Going for a walk, moving your body, and being in an environment. When I worked at this university gym for so many years, like just being there, engaging in movement, like I just start to see stuff. It's kind of like a matrix type thing. Just like, I'm seeing the code, I could do this thing and that thing,
Yes.
So open your mind to that. And also, I love that. I think that the invitation into that is that we look for weaknesses, right? And here's the rub for me personally, is just like, don't do that psychologically. That'll just happen. Do it physically. Physically look for those points of weakness, because you don't want to be weak physically, right? But psychologically, focus on your strengths. Do your thing, but also you got to continue to challenge yourself. And part of that too is like, even our conversation when I came on to the show with you guys was challenging our thinking and putting ourselves in someone else's shoes, right? Being able to perspective take, especially if somebody has a differing opinion, right? And we tend to get put into that box. Same thing with research. This is what I do every day. I mean, I've read thousands of studies. Even the outcomes of some studies are not going to apply across the board, right? And so, for example, we got friends who are full on doing a vegan protocol. We got friends who are full on doing a carnivore protocol. And both ends of the spectrum have seen remarkable benefits with their patients. And we cannot negate that. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that this is right for you. And it doesn't mean that it's not right now, and that might change, right? So opening up that perspective, because for, my friend over here in the carnivore camp, he's eating testicles, and it's just like, it's the best thing ever for him, Other people like, I can't even get my kids to eat broccoli. Like, how the hell am I expecting to eat some nuts? You know what I mean? Not those nuts, but some other nuts. You know what I mean? And so being able to have some perspective and understand, like, yes, something, an N of one can mean the world, and that matters. So that anecdotal, you said the word earlier, anecdotal, that gets negated so much.
Yeah.
And we also, then we can dip into the intentions behind certain studies, who's funding the studies, and the on and on and on and on. Your number one guiding force in this life is listening to your body, actually tuning in and listening to your own body.
Yes.
It's constantly giving you feedback, And so I want to ask you about this, because you shared that there was this lesson that you got from your mom about being careful with your words.
Oh,
Let's talk about that.
yeah. Yeah. I was really, again, I'd say I was really fortunate, my mom, and the things that she taught me growing up. Because if she'd ever hear me like say something negative or something just that wasn't something that would help me grow, like, I can't do this, or that's not possible for me, or that's too difficult for me to fit. Like, if she ever heard me say those things, she'd catch me so quick that it literally turned into, I don't say things like that. Like, number one, like I don't really complain about things because it's like, why are you going to complain when you can try to find a solution? Like I get the feeling, don't get me wrong, especially when things just aren't going your way. I get the feeling of wanting to complain about it, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, what does that bring you? You know, it could bring some level of relief, but it hasn't brought a solution. But also, when you say things about yourself that are limitations, you tend to believe those limitations. And I'm someone who really believes in the power of your belief. So if you tell me that you can't do something, if you truly tell me you can't do something, number one, I don't believe it's actually true, but I know it's going to be true if you say it.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be true if you believe it, because if you believe it, you can't, right? I don't know if she's going to watch this or listen to this, but I have this tattoo on my hand that she hasn't noticed for the past year and a half. I've been in front of her and I've waved my hand in front of her all the time, but she just hasn't noticed it. So if she watches this, sorry, Mom. It's the word limit with a line through it. And it's because my mom would always say the sky's not the limit, right? She'd always hear people say the sky's the limit. And she's like, why? That must make sense. The sky's not the limit. And then she drilled that into me. So I have limit with a line through it because I truly believe that, like, as human beings, if you really want to do something, if you truly do set your mind and your intention to being able to do something, you're going to find a way to do it. Whether it's transforming your body, changing your life, whatever it is, there's a way that you can achieve that. But if you, I like to call them mind viruses. And it wasn't coined by me. There's this guy, God Sad, who coined the term mind viruses. But the way I see mind viruses is people put these things into the ether. They say, oh, this is impossible for humans to do, or you can't do this. When fitness, there's flexibility or stretching with training is gonna, you're gonna decrease your power output, or fasting is gonna make you lose muscle if you do it for too long. All these things that people think are just the way things are because so many people have said it. As much as I appreciate some of the knowledge, and I appreciate that, don't get me wrong about studies. I like studies. I truly do. But I do take them with a grain of salt if I haven't personally done it, When I hear those things, I'm like, cool. That's cool for you. I'm going to give it a shot and see what happens. But I'm not just going to give it a shot. I'm going to give it a shot and really put time behind it. Because one thing is, people say, oh, I gave this diet a shot. Did you? Like, you spent 2 weeks trying that. Like, I mean, sometimes diet protocols aren't the best, but like, if you truly gave that a shot, you would have given yourself more time. You know what I mean? So when I do things, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it an honest shot. I'm going to really go at it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if it does, boom, I found a solution for myself. And it's a solution that a lot of people said wasn't possible. And I like that. Yeah. I like that.
Man, I know when I mentioned like something your mom said, you were like, where is this going? But man, that's a powerful, like, it's such a gift to have someone like that in your life.
Yeah.
To point you in that direction. And, she's probably intentionally ignoring the fact that her son got this tattoo. She's probably like, you don't put bumper stickers on a Ferrari, And, this is something that I would think about as well. We say these terms, even things that seem to be empowering, the sky's the limit. No, we're limitless. Mm-hmm. The limits are only what exists in our minds.
Yeah.
And also, something else that you've pointed us to throughout this, is just understanding truly how little we know. And, as a society, part of the reason we're in the situation that we're in right now is that we're acting as if we know, and we've got stuff figured out for everybody. Mm-hmm. And we're treating everybody in life itself in this kind of like cookie cutter fashion.
Yeah.
And one size fits all for everyone. And it's just a huge mistake. But never before has it been brought to the surface like this, so we can look at it and just be like, nah, it's not true. How could it be true for you? And biochemically, like, my makeup is totally different. I have a unique metabolic fingerprint, a unique microbial fingerprint that's affecting my genetic expression, totally mm-hmm. different from yours. Mm-hmm. We have similar physics that guide some things, but even within physics, there's this thing that also is getting kicked around still, is that stuff just happens. It just happens. That's ignoring physics. Like, everything has a cause and effect,
Yeah.
right? There's a causative agent behind everything. Do we have the courage to look into that is the question. Do we have the courage to experiment? And that's one of the things that really stands out about you is you're a courageous human being.
Thank you.
You know, and when we start to develop that trait, it tends to bleed over into other areas of our lives. Would you say that that's pretty accurate?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's why I feel extremely blessed that the podcast is what I do, because I'm so interested in talking to people that are really good at whatever it is that they're doing. But the biggest thing that I really want to learn from them is like, what makes you you? What are the things that you do each day? What are your habits? Like, what are these little things that nobody sees you doing? Because those habits are the thing that has allowed them to do what they do, get to the level of performance that they've gotten to, attain the level of knowledge in that specific thing. Like that's it. And there was a point in my early 20s when, like, you know, body transformations were a really easy thing for me to do. Like I had like just specific macros, you can get them doing a certain thing, boom, it's easy. I thought like, okay, I have this figured out. And I stagnated hardcore, not just for my performance, but people I was working with. Like they were getting the results, but it's like I thought it was figured out. And it wasn't until like I started literally just trying to get out of my bubble of IFYM and bodybuilding and learning more about all of these different things, seeing where my weak spots were. It wasn't until that I was like, number one, as I started to learn more, I realized I don't know anything. Like I know something, but there is so many things that I'm really bad at, or I have a really big knowledge gap at. And I appreciated that. I like it when we're talking to people and I have no idea how they learned what they learned, or I have no idea where they got there. Because I'm like, okay, I need to figure that out. That's really cool. Because if I can figure that out, then we can share that with more people. So the curiosity thing is like, it's what makes the work so rewarding, because we're filling all these personal gaps within ourselves. That's why it also goes back to the no weak links thing. Find out things you're weak with in the gym. Find out things you're weak with in life that you're maybe interested in, and go hard at that. Mark likes to say, he has this term, lean into the resistance of life, right? And I truly believe that. Lean into the resistance. There's something you're not good at, lean into that. The chances are that on the other side of that door, the other side of that experience is going to be a really good level of growth that you're going to be very, very, very happy that you took part in.
Man, it's been awesome, man. You mentioned the show a couple of times. Can you let everybody know the name of the show again?
Yeah.
And, you know, again, just, you've blown my mind, man, several times in this conversation.
Thank you.
Because the big thing for me is your curiosity, your courage, but also, man, just to see a human being who's implemented so much of their life force into certain things, and then being able to pivot and to bring that with them, you know, it's just so damn cool. You know, like you mentioned, you're not just doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like you compete, you know what I'm saying? Like, didn't you, like, you did a tournament? Well, first of all, I'm not gonna let you go without this.
Yeah.
I saw somewhere you were Mr. California.
Yeah. So
Mr. California.
Yeah. So I competed in natural bodybuilding from 2012 to 2015. I got my pro card in 3 different natural federations. And I went to Worlds in 2015. I got 5th place in the world for the heavyweights. So that was my last year of bodybuilding competition. But yeah, there was a show I won in Sacramento, which was WNBF. I forgot which show it was, but yeah, I was Mr. California for that show, which was cool. But then after bodybuilding, I pivoted to powerlifting, and that was cool too. I got an elite total, which was nice. But like I mentioned, I just wasn't moving the way I wanted to move. So then I started jiu-jitsu, and it's going to be 7 years in December that I've been doing jiu-jitsu, and I love that. I still do all the lifting, but I've been competing in that for the past 7 years. So it's been pretty good. I got second at Pan Ams and second at Worlds as a blue belt. And yeah, I'm a purple belt now. I'm probably gonna get my brown belt pretty soon, but my goal with jiu-jitsu is to try to compete at the top level as a black belt. So we got a ways to go. But I have some confidence that it's gonna happen. So it's exciting.
Awesome. So The show is,
Mark Bell's Power Project. It's everywhere, YouTube, all podcast stuff.
and people can follow you.
Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube. NsimaInyang, and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter.
Hey, if you like this video, make sure to check out this video right here.
What if I told you these are diseases of skeletal muscle first? And that obesity, diabetes, heart disease, cardiovascular disease begin in skeletal muscle first. Insulin resistance begins in skeletal muscle first. And if we care about root cause medicine, then we have to care about skeletal muscle.